Welcome to the second installment in the Trilogy. If you have yet to see episode 1, then I recommend you go back and watch that. If you have seen episode 1, but can't remember it, I recommend that you too go back and watch it. In fact, my viewer numbers are quite low right now and I'm getting pretty desperate, so I would encourage everyone to go back and watch my videos on repeat. Ka-ching! Hang on. I'm just letting everyone catch up. We all good? Where was I? Ah yes. Trenders, weirdos in disguise. I jest, of course, to coddle the easily triggered. However, at the start, I want to make a number of things clear. I am not making an attack on the trans community. I am happy to point out bullshit. My intentions are to try and get some trans people / influencers to listen before the oncoming storm mentioned in episode 1. See, I told you it would be relevant. Appears and swallows everything up. The only way I see to do this is to hold a mirror up to show them what's wrong, to give them a chance to fix it. Let me state an axiom I think sums up this video. Nobody likes a show-off. Worse still, a show-off who has absolutely nothing to be proud of. That goes for anyone, no matter what race or gender they are. Sure, the scenario might appear humorous to start, but the joke gets old fast. This is the direction that trans trending appears to be heading. Before I get to the fun stuff, I will give the example of a trend that started 4 months ago and is already dead and hated. I am of course referring to the dreaded fidget spinner. At around the start of the summer of 2017, there was a virtual explosion of spinners across Ireland, and a literal one too, with everyone wanting to get their hands on these flashy, glorified, broken dynamos. Since about a month ago, the mood has already apparently reversed, and they are now seen as annoying wastes of time and money and are no longer selling. The long and the short of it comes down to, don't be a fidget spinner. Up until a few years ago, the world had really not paid attention to the T in the GLB alphabet. Society seemed to be focused strictly on the gays, leaving their trans side in the back seat, away from view. Personally, I cannot specifically trace the timeline back to a major event when the trans side were given their own golf buggy, but now that lobby is driving it all over the course and apparently purposely getting in everyone's shot along the way. I realize that I have already been talking for a few minutes and I have not fully defined my terms, so for clarity, let me do so now. For the sake of this video, a trans trender is someone who self-identifies as part of the trans community and apparently has trouble staying out of the limelight. Someone who is obviously seeking attention and they do not care whether the attention is good or bad. Or someone exploiting the current political correctness shield to cause serious problems and then seemingly get away with them. This, in my opinion, is the real battle that trans folk have to face in the Western world. Let me give a few examples that demonstrate why. So I'll work my way along. Note, for the purpose of this video, I will go out of my way to try and avoid specific pronouns this once, but it's going to be tricky. Anyone who has spent time on YouTube watching the SJW movement have by now heard of Riley Dennis, a self-professed trans who is attracted to females and therefore classes themselves as a lesbian. Riley has a YouTube channel and a chip on their shoulder that would rival a McDonald's franchise. As well as being openly trans, Riley has made some very strong statements, some of which I would class as emotional blackmail. An example of this would be Riley stating, "If you do not have a sexual preference for trans people, then you're a bigot," despite the fact that your preferences are none of Riley's business. Riley was also shocked and offended that lesbians were not attracted to him/her just because Riley has a penis. Another example is the reporter Zoe Tur, who threatened Ben Shapiro on live TV because Ben stated scientific facts that men cannot become women, and vice versa. Zoe responded to Ben's comments by grasping his shoulder and stating words resembling, "If Ben did not shut up, he would be going home in an ambulance." A further example of a transgender is Valerie Williamson, aka Smuggly Puff, who was filmed lying to the police at a protest at one of Professor Jordan Peterson's demonstrations. Smuggly Puff is self-described as a female-to-male trans individual who witnessed the assault of activist Lauren Southern by Smuggly's partner. Then, Smuggly turned to the police and stated that they had seen everything and nothing had happened. Ironically, Smuggly Puff was later arrested by the police on assault charges, and when declaring their gender in court, stated that they were a female? These three examples are some of the very public transgenders who are less than sterling representatives of the trans community, all of whom seem to have a warped sense of entitlement. To reiterate, I am not making this video as an attack on trans. I am trying to alert the trans community that the oncoming backlash has already started, and I suggest that influence is brought to bear where possible to rein in the lunatic fringe before you're all tarred with the same brush. If you do not believe me, then just look at the media, which up until very recently had nothing but glowing and positive opinion towards all trans people, no matter what they did. Now, articles are coming into mainstream media which may not be anti-trans, but are definitely not pro. I have the example here of Monroe Bergdorf, L'Oreal's first transgender model. She was sacked for posting racist tweets blaming racial violence on all white people, amongst other rants. Or the example of Jessica Winfield, who was convicted of rape as a man, started taking the hormones while in a male prison, was moved to a female prison, and allegedly was segregated there for making unwanted sexual advances on female inmates. I am not even going to go into the vicious display exhibited against Professor Jordan Peterson when he stated he refused to use non-canon, i.e. made-up, gender pronouns. From my viewpoint, the trans section of society are losing the PR war, skillessly assisted by social justice bullies. I do not have a degree in maths, but even I can see in population terms 99.9% versus less than 0.1% would be a situation akin to ant meat put. Currently, the likelihood of an all-out assault on trans is low, as society in the West, but definitely not in the Middle East, is holding back the fringe. However, be warned, the use of guilt and shame as a manipulation tool, which trenders seem to use liberally, will only work for so long before people stop responding to it. When the goodwill, guilt, and pity in the general public are used up, ultimately for unjustifiable reasons, there will be very little to hold the fringe back. I'm not going to lie to you. There are people who passed these lines a while ago. There are going to be people who say that I am transphobic, that I am spewing hate and encouraging violence in this video. If you can find points where I am doing this, feel free to point them out in the comments. I am happy to be shown my errors, but right now I consider myself the proverbial Cassandra. I will counter with this though. If I really wanted violence against trans people, why would I post this entry in the first place? Surely if hatred were my motivation, it would be more expedient if I kept my mouth shut while watching lemmings heading over the cliff. After which, I could just wait by the seashore to collect sufficient resources for a new fur coat. Wow, I think this is my longest video yet. Slam.